All right, now we should be live. I'm just going to wait for 1 second to make sure that it's happening. If we change over to Chrome for 1 more second, just to see that I am 100% live. Waiting 1 moment. It says I'm live, so I'm just going to trust that I'm live. Hopefully it works. All right, well, welcome everyone. Welcome to the live stream of the making of the Quarantine movie. A little bit like triple in depth here, but my name is Eyre-Walker. Today I'm going to show you how we made 2 of the scenes, like I was saying in my social media channels. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. It's really awesome. Now we've been practicing this on the content side of things. It should work out. On the technical side, who knows? Streaming is a complicated thing, so bear with me if things go wrong. We'll be recording this whole thing as well, so if it fails, I'll upload it afterwards and you can check it out then. Now this is going to be about a 60-minute long stream, so please hang in there. I hope you've got a bit of time, got some dinner sitting there ready with you, or if you're streaming from anywhere else in the world, yeah, have something to drink ready and let's enjoy this. So, like I said, my name's Eyre-Walker. I'm an adventure outdoor travel photographer and filmmaker, and I'm currently stuck in the Wolf Shack, which is my home right here behind you. And if you've watched The Quarantine, then you know that we managed to make a film here. And today I want to show you a couple of making of, behind the scenes of that film and how we made it all work. Now, today's topic is only one of 4 episodes. So we'll be actually working on 4 different episodes over the next few days. And today I want to go a little bit more into depth about story and composition and editing and also concept, how we came across with the idea and how we got it across into a movie. So today's topics, I'll just go over it again in a little more detail. So today we're talking about story, so how we went from script, basic idea to script, all the way to script. Then I want to talk a little bit about the look, where I got my ideas for the look of the film. And then we're going to go into the practical part, which is filming this scene here in the Wolf Shack with the lighting. I'm going to show you the camera gear and so on, and how we made it look the way it looks. And then to finish off, I'm going to show you what we can do in the editing suite in Resolve. So I'm going to do a quick grade of those 2 scenes to show you how it worked out. Okay, so again, thanks for tuning in. Now, this is totally free because I think this should be free. I'm not a master filmmaker and I don't think you should be paying for this. But if you want to support me, I just released my first photo book, which is called Nomadic. You can see it right here next to me as well, I think. And it's just a 60-page A4 sized book. So this is a slightly larger sample, but an A4 sized book, which has a documentation of real world nomads living the modern life up in Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan. I've linked down below in the video description, so you can check it out there. Otherwise, if you're a photographer, you can check out my Lightroom preset packs as well, which is a great way to support me and you get something out of it. So please check it out after the show, and yeah, I would really appreciate it. Okay, so let's jump into it. We're going to jump into part 1, which is the story. Now for the story, I'm just going to sit down a second. Am I right to sit down? Yeah. Okay. Oh, give me 1 second. Sorry for any noise or problems that are happening. Okay, looks good. So for the story, how did we come up with the story of this film? Now, to me, over the last few years, or months more particularly, it's been a bit of a journey from shooting content and empty kind of photography that I didn't really care about, or films that I didn't really care about. I didn't really understand what I was shooting, to something that was all about shooting stories, putting story at the heart of what you create. It gives everything you do purpose, and it means that everything you do has purpose and actually has a goal and really is a lot more fulfilling. So that's sort of where I come from when I'm trying to create nowadays, trying to create content, if you want to call it that. So the most important part in this is to start with a story. Now, initially, we came up with this concept with Alan from Atlas Packs. He contacted me and said, hey, what can you do in this time when we're all stuck inside? And let's create something that has to do with the backpack, but not necessarily, a product placement thing, but just how can we create something that starts a conversation with the coronavirus as well as connected to Atlas packs? And my initial approach was, let's create a one single episode, a sort of a short film, which is what we ultimately did. But our ideas went a little bit apart there, but I did write something down for him. I did make a story outline, as I'll blend in right now. And in that story outline, you can see that it's a really clear description of what I imagined this story to be. So there it is. It's a really clear description of how I imagined this story to be. So if Alan would read this, he would know exactly what the end result would be. Or I tried to be as descriptive and as visual as possible, to put in words what my visual language would be at the end. So let's have a quick look. It's a multi-page document. We're obviously not going to read the whole thing, but it's just to show you what I present to a client before I come up with a storyboard or with a script or even more work. So first of all, make it really visual. That's good for my client because they know exactly what they're going to get. And it's really good for me because I know exactly what I have to deliver. Okay, so this is sort of what it looks like. As you can see, day 2, 4, 7. Obviously, we veered a little bit off of this because it didn't end up being a collaboration with Atlas Packs. But the story outline that I sent to Alan from Atlas Packs was definitely the big part of this movie. Now, we obviously didn't do it so much about the backpack anymore, and it was a very open story that didn't really have any product at its center or anything like that. Maybe the drone, if you remember. Okay, so from the story, or from the story outline that I sent to him, that we discussed and that we went into detail about, I went into creating a script. Now, I don't usually get the chance to do that. This is a really unique situation for me as well, and as you can see right here, it might be a bit small for you to read, but the script is basically a description of every single scene and what its purpose of that scene is in accordance with the story. So I've got the script here. Now, we're not going to read the entire script, there's no point, but it was very much a first for me to create a script and really write out what my story would look like in words. Instead of going out and just shooting it and just puzzling it together in editing, I had a very clear idea what every single scene would be like before we started shooting. One thing that I really got out of this that I've never had before was that the script helps me to connect every single scene in a way that makes sense. So the story makes a lot more sense if you write it out in a script. And I realized some of the elements I wanted to build in didn't make sense. It wasn't going to work because I was making, continuation errors where it just wouldn't make sense for me to do this or that. Now, if you write it out in words, you really get aware of that and you jump back and fix your story before you start shooting and realizing you're creating something silly that doesn't make sense at all to anyone. Okay, so this script at hand was the perfect thing for me to start shooting. Now, this is a lot of preparation. I spent quite a few days creating this, obviously communicating with Atlas Packs as well to create this whole thing. But today we want to recreate scene B11, and I'll just read it out. This is what I wrote, what scene B11 would be, which is the wide shot slowly moving out. He sat in the kitchen table. It's a tiny space. Minimal lighting has gotten dark and gloomy, and all we hear is the clicking of the clock on the wall. And from now on, we continue hearing that clicking in every single scene. So as you can see now, this is exactly the scene we want to create today. And this scene comes back multiple times in the short film, which means once we've set up everything, it would be really quick and easy to set up the second version of that scene, which is later on in the story, where we can see slight gloomy, dark, and moody atmosphere going on. The photographer, which is me in this case, has started to lose his mind. And this is just before he has to run to the toilet because of the deadly diarrhea virus. So if we switch back between the first and the last scene, the first scene is the end of day 1, where he's just cleaned his camera gear. He's really happy, but he's just realizing that he's all by himself alone in that house and he will not be leaving anytime soon. And the second one is realization that things have gone downhill badly. So these are the two scenes we want to recreate today, and we'll try and get as close as possible. Good. Now, let's jump into the preparation, the look of the film. So I'll just move the camera around for a second. so I can show you a little something. Yep, we got it. I hope you're still there. Okay, cool. I might be slightly distorted. I'm using a fairly wide lens to fit you guys in, or fit everything in. As you can see behind me from the screenshot I just showed you of the film, plus what we have going on right now, it's pretty close to that. But of course, we're going to have to do some changes to the scene to make it look that juicy cinematic that we want. Now, one of the things I do when I start creating a film or a look for a film, I don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's people that have done this professionally for many, many years. So my idea was to go out and copy looks and styles and get inspiration from movies that I love and that would suit the subject of this film. So I was looking for things like a wooden cabin, a horror, dark story, maybe something going crazy. And I was just looking at directors and film producers, cinematographers that I admire anyway, just to find that inspiration. And I use a platform called Shot Deck, which another big Hollywood cinematographer opened up. It's still in beta, so I don't know if you can still sign up for it, but it's really great. You can search any single movie you want. He's got thousands and thousands and thousands of screenshots of movies with keywords and descriptions. So if you look for a certain angle, a certain camera, a certain mood, a certain color, a certain actor, anything is possible almost. And it really gives you that opportunity to put together like a visual deck of what you want. So I'm going to show you a few shots that inspired my look and feel for the movie, and as well as the setting of it. So I don't really know which movies these are all from, but the idea was here to have a look at what color palette can I use for my wood. I always find it very orange, and I wanted to have a look at what does it look like in other movies. So I was looking for cabins and gloomy dark cabins, wood textures. Then I really wanted to work with backlight a lot, and I wanted to use two different colors. I think one of the screenshots will show you some nice color palettes. Now in this screenshot, we also have that nice wood texture color idea for wood, as well as lighting, and sort of the setting of that scene is really quite interesting. So we want that chaotic state of mind of the photographer reflected in the scene as well. Okay, this was a potential for the face of the photographer after a couple of days. Obviously, we didn't take it quite that far, but maybe if we continued on in episode 2, I might end up looking like that. Who knows? Here, this is not really lighting or setting, but I just wanted to see what a kitchen scene could look like. How can we create it to look, homely, nice, and warm? Are there any elements in my house that I can position in some certain way to create a mood or a scene? Here again, chaos going on in a wooden cabin, just to try and get inspiration for what a movie should look like if you want to shoot in a cabin. Now this is really the lighting I loved. I love that double tone blue for, gloomy blues, and that backlit orange tone. So we have the outside light being really blue and the inside light being warm and backlit. So none of the places are really inviting, really silhouetted, and those two tones in the color palette. Again, we have lots of orange and a silhouette going on. And as you can see, the mood of the film has really taken shape just by looking at a few screenshots from different movies. Let's continue on, show a few more. Again, double tone with that blue or orange and teal here, really showing orange inside. Silhouette almost of the subject, badly lit, as well as the blue tones coming from outside. And this was another cabin wood kind of scene, just to give a feeling of what kind of elements can we add to the scene to make it look good. Okay, that's it. Now we've got the look, we've got the story set, and everything starts to take form in my head, and I've written it down so it's not going to get lost in my mind or in the way I want it to set. And obviously we had a restriction. I had to shoot inside. I'm shooting a quarantine, which obviously sets the tone of the movie, as well as sets the setting of the movie. So obviously live in a wooden cabin here, which is excellent for this kind of stuff. So we kind of built it out to make it look good for the movie. So as you can see right there, I'm going to walk you through the entire set right now with the lighting, how we set it up, and what kind of props we use to enhance the story and show it visually. So let's change the camera around. Just bear with me for a second as we do that, and we'll move on soon. Moving the camera. I'm back. All right, so as you can see, we're going to move all the way back into the very back space of the scene and then work our way through the room and the set. So let's come with me. Come here. Obviously, the photographer is going to be sitting here, right? Or the character of the movie is going to be sitting here and later on there. That means we want to light this area in a particular way and then light everything else around it to achieve the right look for the film. Now, as you can see, I've got a couple of lights already standing here in preparation. We've got the Aperture 120D big light on daylight, so that's going to create our blue light, as well as an Aperture 672 light here, which has an orange gel in front of it. That's going to create indoor light. Now, before we go crazy on the lights, I'm going to have to fill this room with haze, which is the secret sauce to making these things look good. Now, I've got a little smoke haze machine. It's the Hazem 600. I have, like I said, links in the description, and you can check out all the products. They're obviously affiliate links, so that means I get a little commission when you click on them at no extra cost to you. But this is the secret sauce of the entire film. I'll show you. Here we go. So we're going to fill most of the room with smoke. And what does it do? First it's smoke, and later on it's haze. So let's go crazy. You guys should get some too. There we go. A bit more here. Okay, now what might seem like a lot of haze right now is going to settle in a minute, and it's a bit less than. And it still looks like a lot, but I think this is about a good amount, obviously here. Now, currently we have to wait for it to settle a bit because it's still like smoke, whereas in a minute or two it'll settle and then we have a nice layered haze. What does haze do? It creates depth in a place like this that is not very deep. As well, it gives the light a nice glow. As you can see already here in the kitchen light, we've got that glow going on. And it's going to help us separate elements in the shot, as well as create a gloomy, nice atmosphere. Every single shot in the movie had haze in it, so we steamed up my entire house for a long time. I had to take out my fire or smoke detector because it went off all the time. And that's how we could film it. Okay, so let's move back to the lights. Now, we're going to fill this back light here with an indoor light, which will create that haze glow effect. I'm going to move it a little more into here, and you should already see that it is showing up as a slight glow coming in, and that's going to create a little bit of fill in the background for the scene, and it's sort of an indoor light that's motivated by indoor lighting, even though we faked it just to have more control over that. The next light is this Aperture 120D. Obviously, we have to hide it a little bit from our scene. I'm going to move it back and give it full power since we are shooting the first scene, which is daylight. Now, why would you put a daylight scene inside your kitchen? Well, most kitchens have a window, and there is a window right there, but it's not giving us much light since the sun is coming from that side, and it's basically fading right now at 7 p.m. in Europe at the moment. So we're going to fake daylight coming in to the back of the photographer, which will give us a beautiful two-color, two-tone image. We've got nice warm light from here and nice blue light from the back, sort of on the back of the subject, a bit of light coming in through the window as well. You'll see it works out nicely. Now we'll move back a little more. The whole shot is motivated, of course, by the whole framing. The camera moves slightly out, like it said in the script, so we're going to move on to a slider in a minute. And that is to enhance the feeling that the photographer gets smaller and smaller in the shot, which when he's framed in the door and he's framed in the entire shot with this arch here, as well as the door behind him, and obviously being inside, is really going to enhance that feeling that he is stuck. He cannot leave and he is in quarantine. So we're doing all the visual cues that we can possibly come up with. Now for the first version of this shot, he just finished cleaning his camera gear, so it's pretty neat, pretty tidy. We just got a little plant on the table, super happy. For the second version, we're obviously going to change around things a bit because he started going crazy and he's letting go a little bit of what's going on. So some other props that we have in here that help us tell the story about the photographer, who he is his equipment, some climbing equipment, some photos. We did some close-ups in the beginning of the story, and obviously my book, which I'm secretly trying to sell to you, even in my movie. So watch out if you can see it. And there's obviously an old film camera, just memories and little things that tell us a little story about the photographer without words. And since this whole film was sort of without words. Okay, I'm going to move the hazer back a little bit. I'm afraid it'll be in the shot. There we go. And it's looking pretty good already. It's starting to disperse. And as we move back, you can start seeing, I'll start turning off some lights, and you'll see that a lot of the props here in the foreground actually get quite dark. So we're going to add a little ambient light here, but have full control over that. So I'll pan across to this light here, which is going to be my little orange daylight, sorry, not daylight, ambient light. So we have indoor light motivated lighting, and it's going to put some juicy nice light on that chair. We want to turn that down. We don't want it to be too strong, just so it's balanced a little bit. Okay, this is going to help us fill out that scene a bit for later on when we're shooting the end of day one, which is still bright and happy. He's not too sad. I'll quickly jump in and blend in that shot again so you can have an idea. Here we go. You can see it's quite dark, but we still have, you know, almost light everywhere. So that's what we want to replicate. Jumping back to the live camera. Okay, so you can see, obviously, in this camera that we're filming a live stream with, things are a little brighter since we want to show you everything. Once we start with the cinema camera, which is right behind you, then you'll start seeing that things go a little bit different with the lighting and the look. So let's jump to the Epic cinema camera. I'll close this curtain here so I'm not too overexposed. This is the Blackmagic Ursa Mini Pro 4.6K G2. And I always thought Olympus had a house, you know, a mouthful for camera equipment, but this is pretty hefty name. It's just the Ursa, my baby. And beautiful image, 15 stops of dynamic range, which is great when you're shooting scenes with outdoor light coming in, as well as the capability of shooting in RAW. We're shooting in Blackmagic RAW, which allows me to change my white balance, ISO, and other things later on in post-production, which you'll see in a minute. Now, what's happening? Okay, all good. The camera is equipped with the Sigma Art 18 to 35mm f1.8 art lens, and we've got a follow focus on here, which we don't really need that much, but it'll help us just to, you know, keep that focus adjusted just ever so slightly. And the camera is connected to the Samsung T5 SSD, which is just connected via USB-C. I would never shoot this camera like this unless I'm in a controlled, perfect environment, which in this case we really are, so it's no problem. But if you're shooting in the wild, I would never connect my SSD via USB-C on this side here, which looks very dangerous and sketchy. Now, the entire thing is attached to my Cinovate Doozy 4 slider, which is a mechanical slider. If I'm strong enough to push it, there we go. And that allows the camera to slide smoothly backwards. The interesting thing on this slider is, because it's mechanical, no batteries, no funky stuff going on, it's very simple. But it has a counterweight or a spinning weight inside the head of the slider, and that allows the camera to move really, really smoothly, as you can see right now. Now we've put it on a slight angle, so it angles down and helps with the framing of the shot a little bit. And that's pretty much it. We're going to shoot nice and wide so the photographer looks really small in the shot. Okay, we've got some sun rays coming in. There we go. And yeah, I think that's it for the shot. You get the idea. The props, the lighting, everything motivates the shot and the story, and everything is driven by the story. So without further ado, let's start with creating the story, or actually starting with the scenes. Let's start filming those scenes. So we're going to jump in. jokes, here we are. As you can see, we've set you guys up right behind the cinema camera so you can see the action on the cinema camera. We have Ashley on the cinema camera since I'm featuring in my own movie. So I'm going to start acting. We've set up the settings. We're shooting at 4.6K in a super wide aspect ratio at f1.8 and ISO 800, which is the native ISO for this camera. And the white balance really doesn't matter since we're shooting in RAW. And as any photographer knows, we can change the white balance of RAW image without any problems. The same actually goes for ISO, but we're shooting ISO 800, which gives us that 15 stops of dynamic range. Now we're trying to shoot as bright as possible without blasting out any highlights. Okay, should we do it? All right, cool. I'm sure this is going to be a one take, not more than that. Are you ready? Okay, I'm ready, yep. Okay.
Rolling.
Okay.
And action.
Yeah. What am I going to do tomorrow?
Okay.
All right, I think we nailed it. Did we nail it?
Nailed it.
Okay, cool, sweet. Okay, now everything has to be reset and we're going to shoot the dark scene as well. Takes us 2 minutes, everything's here. I'm going to leave the live stream on so you can keep up and see what happens. So for the dark scene, obviously, things go a little more crazy. Tables on an angle, off center, things like that. And we have this chair, and maybe at a different position. Much less light coming in from the back. I'm going to turn this down to 50%, as well as this guy here being almost off. And the bathroom is open because that is where I'm going to be sprinting. And what does that add as well? It gives us some beautiful blue light coming in. Now from the outside, we want to close down the shutters a little bit, just to make it a little darker in here. So I'm going to do that. Okay, might have to change the camera's settings a little bit, just to bring that brightness up a hint, but should be okay, I don't know. What do you think? Just have a quick look. I think we can work with that.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. Maybe the chair it's really prominent, so we're going to move that further back just to hide that a bit. How's that looking? Is everything fine?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, one of the props I forgot to talk about obviously is the radio, which is one of the key elements of this film, so we had to make sure that was always in frame in these kind of scenes. Okay, I think we're good. Yeah?
Plant down.
Plant, of course, yeah, the plant was on its back, and chaos. We've prepared a little chaos here. I'm just going to bring it in. He drinks a beer or two in his free time, some empty glasses. It's just light chaos, but we'll get there. And that's it. Maybe I'm not wearing my shirt for this scene. Let's just put that here. Oh, okay, sorry guys. Okay, I didn't mean to blast off your ears. You were attached to this. Okay, we'll just do it like this. This will work. And okay, so camera operator, you ready? Everything's still attached and going. Okay. Yeah.
Cut.
Okay, sweet. One hit wonder. Nailed it. Okay, just put this back for a second since I have slight problems with putting things crooked. All right, that's it. I think that's for the scene for now. We're going to jump into moving the camera around, so you guys have to wait for a second. And I think we nailed it. I'm going to attach my SSD to my laptop, and because I've shot straight to the SSD, it allows me to immediately go over to editing off that SSD, which I'll show you in a second. Now it takes us about a minute to swap it to the new setting, so please bear with us, and see you in a minute. Technical. Okay, we are back and we are live, and I'm going to jump into Resolve. We've connected everything and hopefully everything's working well. Is the camera not connected? Okay, everything's good. And yeah, we're going to be jumping into Resolve, and I'll show you how I graded those two scenes and created that mood in two different ways. Now, right now the SSD is not showing up, so I don't know if it's plugged in properly or not, or at all. No, it has to be plugged in directly into the laptop, so 1 second, it'll pop up in 1 second. It's going to quit Resolve for a second. These things happen, we are live. Now the whole reason I want to do this live is because I want to show you how it happens in real time. No cheating, no cuts, no fake. Unless we put you on hold for moving cameras, of course. Okay, let's jump into Resolve again. The SSD is connected. Excellent. So, we're jumping into part 4, which is the final touch, as I call it. So we're just going to edit those two scenes, and I'm not going to do much of editing, but more grading, of course. So let's do that. Now Resolve is booting up. Hold with me for a second, and we should be there in a second. Yep, Resolve is ready. 3, 2, 1. There you guys are. So this is Resolve. Good to go. Looking good. You can see me up in the left, which is nice. And this is the scene from the movie as we shot it. Let me just hide everything. Oh. Some technical difficulties here. Okay. And now going into Resolve. Okay, now, I hope this works out well. We're going to go into the edit page, and I'm just going to grab those two clips off Finder and add them to my footage page, which should work pretty easily. I'm just going to go into Finder, look on the SSD, and there are two clips, the two last clips, I believe. Just going to scroll down, fetch those clips, and there they are. So if I click on that, and that would have been me with the shirt right now, and this is the other shot, and we can scrub through. As you can see, the raw footage works really well. See, we have that photographer alone in his house, and same happens here. Okay, now if you don't know anything about Resolve, this is not going to be like a crash course on Resolve because it just takes a little bit too long to do that, but I'll just show you how I graded these two clips. So I'm just going to chuck them to the end of my timeline right here, which is the bright shot and the dark shot. Right now they're not looking very different, but just give us a minute before we start judging that. Okay, now let's make this fit. Hope everything is well, and we're going to go into color, which is the grading tab. Now my process is stolen off other YouTubers who grade a lot online. I'm going to grab this frame here to edit, and very simply we're going to start working with different nodes. So it's like Photoshop layers. The first layer, I like to name them for myself, is exposure. Then we're going to add another node, which is going to be node label saturation and white balance. After that, we have another node. Oh, sorry. I'm going to go Option S. And this node is going to be our look. Now, this look obviously has multiple layers to it, as if you're doing multiple local adjustments. So, oh, my light, yeah, there we go. I'm going to have a parallel layer, or 2 or 3 even. So I'm just going to preemptively put them here. And then after that, we're going to add another node, a serial node, which is going to be my look adjustment. So if I want to change something on the look globally, and then one more, oh, this is my pushing wrong buttons. And the last one is going to be the vignette. Now, I like the raw footage of my camera. I don't really need to use LUTs or anything of that kind. So the beauty of this shooting raw is that at the bottom left here, I can choose clip, and I can actually edit my raw footage. I can even change my ISO, and like I said, we can change the temperature. We shot this at 5600, which should probably be 3200 as we're exposing for the indoor lights. Well, let's go a bit warmer. I'm going to go up to 4000, somewhere in between the two. Sorry. There we go, that looks pretty good. And I'll bring down the exposure already because we're definitely going to darken this down and increase my contrast a little bit. Other than that, looks pretty good off the bat. Now, the exposure node, which I have selected up here, is the one I'm going to create, or which I'm using is the one I'm using to create you know, the contrast and the final sort of darkness or brightness of my shot. We're going to always work with darkness here in this case. Now, as we can see, we have our camera operator reflecting in the mirror up in the top, but if you watch closely in the movie, you actually see that we did the same mistake there as well. Okay, the image is looking pretty good. I don't want to darken it down too much because this is day one and he's had a good day cleaning his camera gear. It's just a sad ending, but it's not really particularly extremely sad or anything like that. So this looks pretty good. Now we're going to bump, I went into saturation. I'm going to bump up the saturation. And what does that allow me to do? So we've gone up to 60% saturation down here. That allows me to make better masks. Now, let's begin with the look. I'm going to push for this look. We're going to push into more and more green and more blue and cool tones. So for this, we want to actually push a little bit of blue into the highlights, I think, or teal, and go even more in the midtones too. Definitely want to push away from the pinkish look and maybe push a little bit of warmth into the shadows. Okay. Now I'm going to turn that on and off so you can see. Oh, that's everything. Very subtle change. Now it's on, now it's off. Really not that big of a change. But we'll work on it and you'll see that gradually it becomes a good looking image. Now right now you can already see that haze has really done a lot to the image for us. It's really helped us create a good, nice separation between every single layer of this shot, the foreground, the subject, and the background, which is the where the bathroom door is. Okay, really nice here. Now, I would like to create a little more contrast around myself, so I'm going to create a little radial adjustment as I know it from Lightroom and bring that in and obviously feather the hell out of it and maybe rotate it slightly, and we're going to make it as if this light is creating sort of a beam coming in. So we're going to just create a little more white there and push down the blacks a bit more just to get more contrast. Maybe the mid-tones as well, and that's looking pretty good. I think that'll do for now. Now, the next thing is that couch in the foreground is really the wood and the couch texture. That orange is distracting me too much. I want to desaturate that without desaturating everything else. So what am I going to do is I'm going to try and select the couch on those green-orange tones. Whoa, okay. I'm not sure why this is not working. Let's try. Having slight errors. I can see my mask on the tab here, so I'm going to have to do it blindly, I think. I'm not quite sure why it's happening. I'll just jump into edit and then back into color. Hopefully that allows me to fetch my... No. Okay, it's crashing a little bit on resolve. Maybe it's just my lack of experience. Okay, well, I've created a mask here, which is very difficult to see for you right now, but as you can see in the node here, there's lots of oranges and browns have been selected. I'm going to work off that if I can and try and get everything in the shot that's sort of brown or darker. Okay, that's looking good. There, I can see the mask changing now. This is really not the recommended way of doing this. You want to be able to see it on the big image, but it is what it is right now. And I'm going to put a lot of blur on it just so that mask is nice and softened. Now, look at the saturation of the couch and the walls go down. There we go. I've gone really brutal, but you can see how that worked. So if I turn that on and off, option D, we can see how the saturation on those tones has come down a long way. Looks good. Other than that, maybe the window light is looking a little off. So we're going to add another parallel node, which is just below. And these sort of act like layers on top of my grade and allow me to work on the image, you know, in individual areas. Okay, let's add in a gradient coming in from the window. Unfortunately, I can't show you this mask either. I have a bad feeling that it will all go gray again. So I'll just come in with a gradient from the left side, and that we're going to use to change the temperature and cool it off a little bit. Let's cool this down. And you can see that blueness coming in. And I'll also go for a slight green tinge, so a little sickly green and definitely bring that gain down so that that area of the shot's not so distracting. Come in and do it a little more. That's maybe a bit too much. Shorten my gradient. There we go. And maybe push a little bit of color out of that area as well. Okay, I'm just going to turn that off so you can see it. Oh, there we go. So maybe a bit green. So let's go to our tint again, and there we go. It's looking good. Okay, now the whole thing, we need to add a little bit of a vignette to really focus in on the photographer. So I've gone to my vignette node and bring this out and really punch in a little bit on him by creating a vignette. And the vignette, there's many ways of doing it. I like to use this tool here. I forgot to invert my vignette. There we go. So we're affecting the outside of the mask. And there we are. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Maybe we can work a little more on the contrast where the guy's sitting. The guy, I guess it's me. There we are. And maybe in general, this whole image should be a little cooler. So I'm going to go, I've gone back to the saturation and I'll cool it down, or no, I'll cool it down a bit, and I'll put some tint in as well towards the green. Okay, I quite like this look, so I'm very happy with this. I'm going to create a still, and I'm going to turn everything off. Oh, there we go. That's the original image shot in camera with slight camera adjustments done here in Resolve, and then that's after we've done all our editing to it. As you can see, we really made him pop and still created that sort of blue and orange tone vibe. Now, because this is the same scene, I can technically work off the same edit I've just done. So I've created a still, which is basically a little preset. And let's go back to this. I'll create a new still so I don't grab the wrong one. Yeah, that's right. Make sure it fits. Now I'm going to apply this grade to my scene number 2. And as you can see, it's done a pretty good job at darkening everything down and creating a very similar image to this one. But because we turned down the lights and turned down everything in this scene, the effect, of course, of the changed lighting is already showing. So I'm going to lessen my vignette a little bit and create that look. So we're going to jump into the look. And we want to go much, much more, well, actually, let's go into the saturation and white balance and really go much cooler and much more green. We want to go really sick. There we go, starting to pop in. Okay, so the white balance is doing a big part of the job, but I'll now go into the look and try and achieve more of that feeling. Okay, so I'm just playing with the midtones and with the shadows and highlights, and just pushing some colors into those. Okay, this is looking pretty good. The wood desaturation obviously still works, but on lesser areas. I've just turned it on and off. As you can see on the couch in the foreground, it's still working. And our gradient from the side, still doing a great job coming in. Darken it down even more because I darkened it down in reality too. I think we can push that gradient a little more even and stretch it out a bit like this. And the whole shot, maybe we'll do a global look adjustment. The whole shot is looking a little bit too saturated for my taste. So let's bring this down. And maybe we can push a little more warmth into the entire shot. I think it's gone a little bit too cold. So this is a lot of back and forth until you get what you want. But eventually you get there. I think compared to day 1, this is day X, the last day before he runs off to the toilet, and we can see obviously how different these scenes look. This is just with a few tweaks in white balance and with saturation and with contrast and doing some global or local adjustments to achieve those looks. Okay, I'll blend in the shots that we had as samples today, or as like our goal to achieve, which I think I can show you right now here. Day 1, that would have been the look I went for, so a little bit warmer. Obviously we had slightly different light that day too. And day 7, there, look at that. And then I'm going to jump back into Resolve, and you can see, can look at that. I'm going to go full on this and this. There we go. So quite similar. Well, quite different, these shots, but quite close to what we actually went for the movie. Considering we just did this in a 45-minute live stream, setting everything up and filming it and sitting down, downloading it and editing it, I think that was pretty good and nice result. Now let's jump across to what are we doing now? I mean, I guess that's it. That's it for the grading in this shot. I'm going to jump to this. Sorry, excuse me for this delay. Okay, so we'll just keep it on that camera for now. And just a few final words. Well, first of all, thank you. I hope this all streamed really well and worked out really well. Building a stream like this is pretty technical and difficult. I hope it worked out, and I hope you could all enjoy it. It'll be up on my YouTube channel, of course, afterwards. And we've stayed under the 1 hour mark, which is quite happy. I'm happy with that. Probably means I've forgotten a few things, but on Wednesday, we're going to be shooting another live stream about shooting those beautiful light rays, afternoon sunlight light rays coming into the house, and as the photographer is cleaning his gear. So tune in if you're interested. Again, similar style from setup to shooting it to grading it and getting to the final result. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Now, like I said in the beginning, if you want to support me, if you want to show your gratitude to this free stuff that you can watch on YouTube, then I would really appreciate it if you checked out my Nomadic book. This is the sample, so the final book is going to be slightly smaller, and we're going to have matte paper on the inside, not shiny as you have it here. But it's a collection of my a collection of my nomadic shots of real-world nomads, how they live today in Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan. And it's just a photographic book I put together for myself, but there was a lot of friends and people asking about it, so I figured I'd self-publish it. If you order it now, it'll be released, or it'll be sent out on the 11th of May, so you still have a bit of time, since I have to print it, get it printed, and then ship it out to you all individually, since I'm self-publishing this thing. And yeah, the link is in the video description. A lot of the equipment I used is also linked in the description. And if you're not into this book, but you're a photographer, then you can please check out my Lightroom presets as well, which are also linked in the description. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this. Now this is because it's live, I hope it all worked well. It's really hard to tell right now. But if there's anything you didn't like or want to see more of or less of, or I don't know what, in the next episode, please leave me a comment below, let me know, and we'll work on it for the next ones. If you loved it, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, with filmmakers, with anyone who might be interested in this stuff. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. I really, really appreciate it. And we'll see you on Wednesday, 7 p.m., maybe a little earlier. You'll see on my YouTube or on my Instagram channel more news about that. And yeah, thanks for coming in. And I really, really appreciate you all. Thanks.